Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd One Out with your host Mark. Today I'll be talking about a series of films that can be called The Omen.
In 1976, the birth of evil was foretold in The Omen. In 1978, a terrifying prophecy was fulfilled in Damien, Omen 2. And now, you will witness the ultimate challenge to the future of mankind as the trinity of living terror is completed in the final conflict.
Yes, Mr. President.
I've just appointed Mr. Damien Thorne as our new ambassador to the court of St. James.
Damien Thorne is 32, attractive, brilliant, charismatic. To the modern world, he brings a purpose, a vision, a destiny. He's one step away from the most important position on Earth.
Disciples of the Watch, I stand before you in the name of the one who was cast out from heaven, but is alive in me.
The power of evil is no longer in the hands of a child. Heed the warning. Prepare for the final conflict, the concluding chapter of the Omen trilogy.
The Omen came out in 1976. Back then, there was a lot of interest in sort of supernatural, prompted by The Exorcist. And this was kind of seen as a cash-in on that, though it was made 3 years afterwards. It's kind of a neat little tale about the coming of the Antichrist in modern day. It stars Gregory Peck, Lee Remick, David Warner, Patrick Trout, and Leo McKern. And I've already reviewed it in Our Good, The Bad and The Odd episode 64 on its own. So I'm going to sort of skip through this particular film quickly and get on to the rest. I thought it was a very good thriller, this. It built really nicely. It was a little overlong, perhaps, but the central performance by Gregory Peck was very solid and good. Gave the film real gravitas. So it felt more like a mainstream film, and even though it's really a genre movie. Lee Remick was okay. I never thought she was that good an actress, but she was fairly adequate. But it was the supporting cast that really made this, and that was, as I've already said, David Warner. Patrick Troughton was really good as the priest who first alerts Thorne to the Antichrist business. And also Billy Whitelaw was really good as Mrs. Baylock, the nanny from hell that came to look after Damon. Also the big dog was quite cool. Yeah, good film this. I think this is the best of any of the ones I'm going to talk about today. I can't remember what I rated it last time, but thinking back on it, I'd give it 76 out of 100. Rather enjoyed it. It was followed up a couple of years later by a sequel called Damien Omen 2. This is where the little boy is, I think, 7 years on, and he's old enough to go to military academy. He's been looked after by his uncle and step mother, and people are starting to realise weird things happen around him. And basically, this is an okay film. It's fun. It's got the structure of a slasher film, really. There's pretty much a grisly death every 10 minutes. And they're quite inventive. There's like an old lady being scared by a crow. There's a woman getting her eyes pecked out and being flattened by a lorry. The most inventive one involves a doctor analysing out Damien's health and realising he's got the blood of a jackal. And as he realises it, the weird music starts. You know something's up. And he gets trapped in a lift. The lift starts plummeting down down floors. You think the lift's going to just get flattened, but it's a way more grisly death than that. It's quite inventive. People getting stuck under ice, embolisms in the head or strokes or something, blood veins giving away in the head, all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It's kind of fun from that respect. The central performance by the boy isn't bad. William Holden's his new father figure who's doesn't accept what's going on. And overall, it's not bad. Lance Henriksen also appears in this, and he's quite young, actually. He doesn't look as craggy as he usually does. It's kind of interesting to see. And I've seen this film a couple of times before, and I didn't realise that was Lance Henriksen. But watching it again, wow, yeah, that's Lance Henriksen. So it's good from that respect. But this one's a significantly lesser film than the first one, I think. I'd give this one 60 out of 100. Then we come to the last one in the 70s cycle of this movie, for the cinema at least, and that was The Final Conflict, Omen 3 Final Conflict. I think it's sometimes even given a convoluted name, Damien Omen 3 Final Conflict, which a bit of a mouthful. There's only really one good thing about this, which is Sam Neill. Sam Neill's really good in this. He's a real presence, and you think, yeah, this guy's going to go places. And he's an actor with real presence. He's very young here, but he's quite good. However, the rest of the film's considering the premise, this is a grown-up Antichrist who's doing his best to destroy the second coming of Jesus. He's got a load of followers. He's up to all sorts of dodgy stuff. It's dull. It's frankly dull given all that premise. It really needs to have be a lot more horrific, it just feels pedestrian. The only thing there's one bit in it that makes you think, which is he orders the death of all these newborn babies, and you don't see it on screen, but it's implied heavily what's going on. It's a bit grim, actually. So I think the pedestrian of it makes it actually feel a bit grimmer, because it feels like you're watching a kitchen sink drama, but babies are dying, rather than a fun kind of ridiculous genre film. I'd give this 46 out of 100. It's that poor. Sam Neill is the only saving grace in it, really. I didn't like it otherwise. There was a number 4 made-for-TV film, I think called The Awakening, which kind of had the subplot of... Oh, actually, there was one other good thing in Final Conflict. There was a scene involving like a fox hunt that was quite cool, kind of interesting. But it could have worked better as a genre piece. And if they ever get to remaking this, I'd kind of like to see it, because it involved monks jumping out of places, trying to kill him with knives. And that should be way more fun than this film presents, actually. That kind of semi-ridiculous premise of like monks jumping out, a bit like Kato jumping out on Inspector Clouseau with knives, but it doesn't quite work that way. There's a few grim deaths as well, but there's lots of things that this film really doesn't fire. It's firing on one cylinder rather than 4, kind of thing. Okay, anyway, there was a 4th made-for-TV film, The Awakening, which involved I think I didn't watch it for this because it was made for TV. I do remember it being pretty awful, so I wasn't prepared to watch it again. But it involves the lover that Damien has in the third one giving birth to a daughter, and then that daughter's being protected because it's intended she then gives birth to the Antichrist or something. It's unclear whether she's the Antichrist or if she's going to give... Who knows? I don't know. It seems a bit misogynistic to assume the Antichrist must be male to me, but hey, the devil's an old-fashioned kind of guy. It was terrible, I do know that, and there wasn't much scares in it, and it was for TV, and this was back when things for TV just weren't that scary, apart from the odd thing like maybe Stephen King's It or Salem's Lot or something like that, but this wasn't anywhere close to that. It was pretty poor. Right, that brings us to the remake. 2007, they remade the first film with Liev Schreiber, I think it was Emily Stiles, and a really, really good supporting cast. They had Daisy Thewlis as the photographer who was the character played by David Warner in the original. Pete Postlethwaite was the priest that was played by Patrick Troughton. And Mia Farrow was the nanny from hell. And actually, that supporting cast made this really good. Liev Schreiber, who I really like usually, was a bit dull in this. He really was. I think he was trying to do like a repressed, uptight kind of guy, and it came across as a bit of a blank. Emily Stiles was okay. I'm not a fan of her. She was all right though. They do introduce a few more jump scares in the original, where people keep seeing visions in dreams. There's a lot of dream horror in this, which is all right. It's an easy way to get a jump, I suppose. But otherwise it's quite faithful and a bit plodding, actually, from that point of view. In fact, I think this is longer than the original. The original stretched it out a bit. There were some nice alternatives here and there, but mostly it really stuck to the same kind of approach. Some of the differences struck me as quite good. There's a bit in the first one where they go... Lee Remick takes Damien to a safari park, and the animals go wild while they're in a car, and that's kind of scary. In this, they're in a zoo, and the animals start going nuts, and the gorilla starts pounding on the glass. That was quite good. And also, in the original, the photographer was decapitated by a sheet of glass, and they do have quite an interesting variant on that in the remake. The remake's not bad. I don't mind it. It seemed a bit pointless in that it was almost exactly the same. However, it wasn't, say, as mind-numbingly pedestrian as, say, Gus Van Sant's version of Psycho, where it's shot-for-shot remake with none of the style at all of Hitchcock. The first Omen was workmanlike, but fairly good thriller. This was also workmanlike and a fairly good thriller. In fact, it was stylistically a little better, actually. So I think I'd give this 68 out of 100. Not bad at all. Worth seeing. I'm wondering if they're going to remake a remake. Oh, the kid who played Damien was quite good too. I did like Mia Farrow. The supporting cast just really made this work for me. And the fact it was taken seriously. I kind of enjoyed this. I would recommend sitting through the 4 films, actually. I wouldn't bother with the TV one, unless you're a completist. I'm mostly a completist, but there's some things I draw the line at, and TV movies, sequels as TV movies, is probably that line. Okay then, bye.